refused to shy away from his faith because he knew that his example mattered to millions of religious minorities across the country. And when everyone was laughing smugly at the prospect of a President Trump, Representative Ellison was telling his party to wake up and prepare for new political terrain. And all the while, Larry Summers, listen up, the outsider has risen to be a leader in the Progressive Caucus, a leader in the Democratic Party, and a leader in our national political conversation, an insider-outsider extraordinaire. This year, I've been fighting for our community to do better in our insider-outsiderness. It's why I wrote Our Bicentennial Crisis, which is a call to action for Harvard Law School to do a better job at serving the many and not the few, to do a better job at shrinking our shameful prison system, to do a better job at expanding civil legal aid for the poor, to do a better job at amplifying the voice of the public in a Washington when corporate interest lobbyists outnumber public interest lobbyists 34-1. To learn a bit about what it takes to graduate from law school and still have the courage to take risks. Stay dedicated and remember who you are fighting for. The Harvard Law Forum proudly presents Congressman Keith Ellison.
Well, Keith, thanks a lot. I mean, that's as enthusiastic of introduction as I feel like I'm at a pep rally. I'm ready to go. But you know, it really is a fact that we're in a special moment in time. It reminds me of a story I read years and years ago about FDR. FDR had died, and his casket was on the back of a train, and it was winding around the country. Large crowds of people would come out and say, you know, wow, this man did so much for us. People came to pay their final respects in large numbers, and this particular community was no different. In fact, there was a man out there who was wearing bib overalls, burlap. He had a flannel shirt on. He clearly is the kind of guy who worked with his hands, and yet he was out there with everybody else, and he was visibly upset. And a journalist came to him and said, "Sir, I noticed that you're a little bit emotional right now. Did you know President Roosevelt?" And he said, "No, but he knew me." My prayer for the Democratic Party is that people across the United States will know that we know them. And they'll know that we know them because we're in their lives. They don't see us on a TV screen pushing forward an ad saying something bad about our opponent. They see us at their doorstep, in their church, mosque, or synagogue basement, in the VFW hall. We need a radical revolution in terms of presence in the lives of people. I want to tell you that it is the lack of that presence, the fact that we've allowed distance to grow between us, that I think is a causal factor in the failure that we have seen over the last 8 or more years. And it's put us in a position where, you know, since 2008, we've lost over 1,000 state legislative seats. And it hurts to lose state legislative seats. People make a big deal about Congress. Congress is not where the action is at usually. Because if you got same-day voter registration like we do in Minnesota, is that right, Mayor? It's my good buddy over there, Mayor Hodges, give her a hand. Then it's because the state legislature said so. If you get a felony conviction and may never get a chance to vote like you got in Florida, it's because the state legislature says so. If you have a right to work, which is a right to work for less, it's because the state legislature has passed that law, just like they have in places like Kentucky, Missouri, Wisconsin, Michigan, and places like that. And we know that right to work states have lower wages, fewer benefits than ones that don't have that. Right in Minnesota right now, we're fighting them off. We're making sure they don't come there. But we know that they're at the door and they're trying. But this is a matter of state legislation. You know, in Missouri and in Texas, maternal mortality in childbirth has literally gone up. Women dying in childbirth has gone up, and this is because the state legislature passes all kind of laws trying to interfere with a woman's right to choose. So we've lost 1,000 seats because of mistakes that we made, and it has hurt people. When Democrats lose elections, people suffer. And so we've got to think very seriously about how we reverse these trends. And I think the first thing we need to change is our attitude about the importance of being in the lives of people every day. Roosevelt, he had the fireside chat every week. You want to know what he's thinking? Tune in. He's going to tell you. Also, we didn't have the internet then. We didn't have social media then. We didn't have any of this stuff. We didn't really have television so much. And so they campaigned in a way that we really haven't seen in a generation. They actually had personal relationships. They used politics to build community. They used politics to build up community. So that if you were in the Democratic club, you might not have enough to eat that night, but you could call somebody in your party who might be able to knock on the door and help you out. If you were a senior citizen, you had people who you knew. Because of technology, I believe Democrats have made a mistake. We have thought that technology can replace human relationship, and it never can. It can help, it can augment, but it can't do it. That's why the Democratic Party right now, we have something we call I Will Vote, iwillvote.com. You can look it up and check it out. And our goal is to engage 50 million people and get them to commit to vote. I want you to know about it because it's not an election tactic. Somebody might be thinking, oh, well, is that a good election tactic? I'm not sure. No, it doesn't matter because this is not about one election. This is about a generation. This is about building a set of relationships that will endure. It's not about 2018, although we hope it helps us in 2018. It's much deeper than that, much more important than that. We have to go further down, we have to get stronger, and we have to make sure that we are palpably in the lives of people. And you know what's going to happen if we do that? We'll have a lot of conversations, and people will tell you something at the doors. They'll tell you stuff that you don't know. They'll tell you stuff that no DC focus group poster can tell you. They'll give you a sense of how afraid people are about the failure of our public sector to meet their needs. I had a woman tell me the other day, let me tell you, man, she looked me in the eye. She gave me one of them cold looks where you know she's not lying to you. She's serious. She said to me, my mother died from breast cancer. Her sister died from breast cancer. I'm 28 years old and I'm thinking about getting a double mastectomy because I can't afford to get breast cancer because I got 2 little kids that I got to raise. I'm too young to die from cancer like my mother did. So what's going to happen with the Affordable Care Act? We know that you're carrying the bill now for universal single-payer health care, Medicare for all. Are y'all really going to be able to pass that? Because I want to help. What focus group's gonna know that? I know that because she told me that. In fact, she grabbed my arm and looked me in the eye when she told me that. The same way I was talking to an older woman, and we have in my particular campaign in Minneapolis, we knock on every door. Before I ever started talking about knocking on doors with the DNC, I was knocking on them back in Minneapolis. We knocked on 50,000 doors last summer. I wasn't even on the ballot. My district used to have the lowest turnout in the state of Minnesota. Now it has the highest, and we got that way because of grassroots engagement that we learned from Senator Paul Wellstone. And so this lady tells me, I'm in her apartment, I'm knocking on her door, and she says to me, oh, hi. And usually people are trying to either don't answer or they want to get rid of you quick. She's trying to invite me in. She's telling me, do you know, I helped get Jack Kennedy elected. She was proud of that. She said, my son, he's a doctor, he lives in San Diego. I wish he'd call more. I said, this lady's lonely. I invited her to be part of the phone bank. She's one of the best volunteers we got. She brings in her peach cobbler she's so proud of. Everybody gobbles it up. She has built a community through politics. And this is something that we used to take for granted. And it's something that we have let slide because we want to think a television camera or a internet or a website or a tech thing, we think that's what our problem is. That is not our problem. Our problem is we have allowed relationships to wither. We have allowed human connection to wither. And if you look at it over time, our whole society, Republican, Democrat, everybody, we have seen that people are craving community. They're quite lonely for it, in fact. And when you hear people complain to the Democratic Party, what they're telling you often is we miss the community that we used to enjoy. So we've got to understand, this is the direction we have to go. We got to get 50 million people to commit to vote. We have got to knock on every door. We've got to call as many people as we can. We've got to stop obsessing on the election, because when you obsess on the election, people start picking up on your behavior. If I come to you during the election and the next time you see me is at the, this is audience participation, at the election, and the next time you see me is at the, you might start to think that all I care about is the, and what do people think we do with these positive results that we get that might come from election? Oh, I leave Minneapolis, get on a plane, go to D.C., and they don't know what I do there. They know that their lives are stagnating and not doing, and the government doesn't seem to be fighting for them. They feel that way. So maybe I'm just there, so maybe I'm asking for their vote at the election so that I can go eat steaks and drink scotch with lobbyists or something and do not much more than that. This is why we've got to stop obsessing on the election. To the people who are not into politics, nobody in this room, right? But by show of hands, do you have somebody in your life who says they're not into politics? Right. What do they care about? They may not care about the election, but they care desperately about what happens between the election, do they not? They want to know what's happening between the election. Between the election, they either can get the health care they need or not. They can get the reproductive services or not. If they're a person who is of Muslim faith, their loved ones can either come here or they cannot come here. If they are a DACA recipient, they either have to fear getting thrown out of the country or they feel comfortable staying in the country. People who are not into politics, they don't obsess on the election, they obsess on what happens between the election. And if those of us who are into politics want to get them to support what we're doing, we better start looking at the world through their eyes. And the only way to do it is grassroots engagement. People talk to me all the time, Keith, what is the Democratic Party's message? You know what our message is? I will vote. Go knock a door. Go build a relationship. Go invite somebody to participate with us. Because there is no constellation of words in the English language such that if you were to put them together at the right tone, the right pitch, the right delivery, that people would stop and look at those words and say, that is the message. It doesn't exist. And you show me a good message, and I'll show you, 1, a relationship, 2, a good program, and 3 is most critical of all, follow through. Why is follow through important? Because that is when people find out whether you really believe what you say you're about. Democratic Party has deviated from message by that standard. Why? Because first of all, I've already talked about how we've let a relationship with her, but you cannot deny that we have a very clear program. You might not agree with it, but you can't deny that we have a clear program. Which party stands up for unions? Democrat or Republican? Which party stands for a woman's right to choose? Which party is most likely to stand up and vocally oppose Islamophobia, homophobia, all the discrimination? Which party is most likely to stand up and say we're against that? People know what we're for. When people say, we don't know what you're for, you know what we're for. Well, you know what we say we're for. But are we really for those things? Let me tell you this. The last time I really felt that people connected to us and got us in a clear way is after the tragedy of the Pulse nightclub shooting. And after that shooting, Democrats led by John Lewis and your own Catherine Clark, by the way, went down to the House floor and started a sit-in, which we all participated in, and Elizabeth Warren joined us too. Who remembers the sit-in we did? People were saying, now I believe you guys really want common sense gun safety laws. I believe you now, because you're willing to lay it on the line, defy the rules even, so that you showed us you really, really, really mean it. Contrast that with some other things. We say we are for civil rights and human rights, and yet, in the course of the last 40, 50 years, Democrats have stood for the war on drugs, mass incarceration. We say we're for the working folks. When we got into the majority, did we pass the Employee Free Choice Act? No. We say we are for things like holding Wall Street accountable, yet it was under Democrats in the late 1980s where we passed Graham-Leach-Bliley and got rid of the law that separated commercial and investment banking. We say we're for working class communities and fair trade, yet it was our president who signed NAFTA. And even though most Democrats voted against it. You cannot say we're for fair trade and we're worried about worker dislocation and then stand for trade bills that are going to disemploy people. You cannot say that you are for civil rights and equality of opportunity and then be in favor of the drug war. You cannot say that you are for helping the poor come up and pass welfare reform, which you know is going to increase poverty. That's what I mean. Your message is your relationship, your program, and it is you, and it is your follow-through. You have to follow through, because that is when a waiting public is going to say, okay, you're on the line now, buddy. Let me see what you're going to do. And if you back down every time, people will not trust you. You just can't do that. It is critical that we go back to the grassroots, because the grassroots help us stay true to the message. It's only because you get attenuated from them that you feel comfortable going back to your district after you done vote against everything you said you stood for. But if you are always in touch with them and you're always engaging them, you don't want to face them if you just voted against them. This is how politicians think. So this grassroots engagement is absolutely critically important. Now, this moment that we're in is unique in that we've never seen this much inequality since the Gilded Age, really. When FDR stood for passing the laws that we all know he's famous for, and he had the help of Frances Perkins, who was the first female labor secretary and the best one by far ever. He said, look, I saw you in farm foreclosure, so we stepped up to help you keep your farm. We saw you that you couldn't get a fair price for the commodities you were growing, so we stepped up and did price supports. We saw that you wanted to form yourself into a labor union so you would have a voice in negotiation relative to management, and we passed the Wagner Act that said that you would have that voice and that it would be your right to organize into a labor union. We saw that you were hungry, and we passed food lines. We saw you unemployed, and we went and passed the WPA and the CCC so that you could have a job. And I guarantee you there are parks right here in the state of Massachusetts that still have a stamp on them, WPA 1935. I guarantee you should go look for them. I know they're in Minneapolis. My friend here is from Minnesota. If you go to Cedar Lake Park, those exact picnic tables are right there, WPA 1935. They're standing still. And they should be a sign and a signal to all of us that when a responsive government steps up and says, you know what, we're not going to leave you alone, we're going to help you in your darkest hour, people will feel like you know them. If we knock doors today, what would people tell you? Yeah, they tell you horror stories about healthcare. If you knock doors today, then what else would they tell you? You would hear black mothers say, I'm scared to death to let my teenage son or daughter go out of the house not because of the other people in the neighborhood, but because of the people who's supposed to be protecting them. It sends chills through her spine every time her kid walks out that door. Stephen Clark shot in the back 8 times. That's what we know. 8 times? Wow. And we can just go on and on and on. And if you listen to people, they will tell you these stories. And they don't hate the police. That same woman would tell you, I don't hate the police. We need the police. We need the police maybe more than anyone else. But we need a new relationship with them such that we're not afraid to call them as much as we're afraid to call. We can't be as afraid of the police as we are the criminals, which is the situation many people are in today. What are we going to do about it? As a society, there's plenty we can do about it, but we can't do about it if our party if that party is not in relationship. That African-American mom needs a party fighting for her. That woman who's looking at a double mask needs a party fighting for her. That person trying to get justice on the job needs a party that's going to fight for them. That is the crisis that we're in right now. That is why I ran for DNC chair, and that's why even after I lost, I agreed to be the deputy chair. What does our people, what do the people of the United States need today in this moment of greatest inequality ever? Well, first of all, you shouldn't get a debt the size of a home mortgage just because you want to go to college. I think we need debt-free college in the United States. We need it now. And I don't even see why we can't get free college, because they do it in Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and a whole bunch of other places. But at least we could do debt-free college. That's a real thing. We need universal single-payer health care. We need Medicare for all. I have searched and searched and searched, and I do not know what value the private insurance companies actually bring to making people healthier. I know what the doctors do. I know what the hospitals do. I even know what the pharmaceutical people, and we need to deal with them too. But I know what they do. At least I know what they do. I don't know what these insurance companies do other than, collect bills, tell doctors, no, I'm not paying that, tell patients, no, I'm not paying that. We need to raise the wages of the American people. Because unions have been attacked so viciously, the worker has to negotiate and bargain in the street through protests and through their elected representatives. We absolutely need a $15 minimum wage, and it needs to be one fair wage. We've got to get rid of this extra tier that exists for servers. The federal minimum wage for servers is $2.13. In the state of Michigan, they're very enlightened. It's $3.38. But in Minnesota, there is no two-tier wage. You got one wage. Betsy Hodges was confronted as mayor of Minneapolis with folks who were saying, okay, we'll do the increase in the minimum wage to $15 an hour in a step ladder. But what about tiering the wage? Betty's like, nope. Isn't that what you said? And we got one fair wage. Imagine yourself being a server. By the way, I'd say well over half of all servers in America are female. You want to fight for gender justice, fight for one fair wage. But I think about 70%, perhaps, it's a big number, and about 40% of all of them are single parents. But if you got a two-tiered wage system, you literally have to audition every time you bring out a meal just to get paid. And you want to talk about a petri dish for sexual harassment? That is exactly what it is. And we sit around here acting like that's not the deal. Look, I'm 100% with people who call out high-profile figures for improper behavior. Let's keep doing that. But if you really want to get to the heart of where women in America every single day have to pay extra just for being female on the job, it is in the restaurant service industry. Fight there, and you will make a difference. You will make a big difference if you do that. We have got to strengthen unions. It's a sine qua non, man. It really is. You can put it up on a chart. As union density goes down, wages flatten out and go down. Not only that, as the companies take more and more and more of the share that used to be shared between workers and management, what do they do with that extra money? Well, one thing they do, stock buybacks. We know that. Since the big tax cut, stock buybacks have skyrocketed. But the other thing they do is they buy political influence. And what do they do with that? Oh, I need a bigger loophole than I needed before. Oh, I need a bigger tax cut than I had before. And what do they do with that extra money? Buy more political influence. Look, the people who are benefiting from these tax cuts, 83% of the benefits are going to the top 1%. They're not doing this so they can get a nice house. They got 50 houses. It's not about consumer items for them. It is about political power and getting an even greater grip on our democracy. And it's also about these mergers. And whenever you see a merger, my view about a merger, you don't merge unless you think you can save money through the merger. You don't need two HR departments. You don't need two marketing departments. Somebody's getting unemployed when you see these mergers come through. I saw the sign for Warby, what's the name of that? Warby Parker. I love those guys because they are fighting against Luxottica, which is trying to merge everything and everyone everywhere you can see. And I guarantee you, people who are making glass, this technology is not particularly amazing. And why do glasses cost $400? Because of market power. That's why they cost it, because they can. What do they do with that money? Buy political influence, merge more, and give each other more stock options. The United States is in an imperiled state. I talked to somebody the other day. They said to me, Keith, the worst problem, the greatest problem facing all of us is climate change. And then they started nerding out on climate change statistics. I'm like, there's one thing I think that is worse. What is that? The exorbitant role that money plays in our politics. Because that problem means we can't solve any other problem. And it's not just donations given to politicians, it's also the independent expenditure that is going to come in against you if you don't get on board. They are subverting our democracy. As our economy gets skewed, our political environment gets more skewed. What is the antidote? Well, I just named some policy things that I think are important, and I'm about to wrap up here. But the most important thing that we have to do, is engage at the grassroots and increase voter turnout and participation to a maximum degree. In 2014, the last midterm, voter turnout was 36%. There's 36%, meaning only about a third of the people eligible to vote voted. Now, are everybody else who didn't vote, are they slackers? Are they bad? Is there a problem with them character-wise? Absolutely not, because we've seen voter suppression like we've never quite seen it. Photo ID is just a little bit of it. The people in power now say, well, we don't want to engage in a debate and win people over to our side. We're just going to try to eliminate them from being able to vote at all. Voter turnout has gone to an abysmally low level for a number of reasons, and it's been falling ever since Truman. This is an indictment on all of us. As we increase that turnout, it is implied within that we are going to talk to more people and engage more people, because I can tell you, as a person who's been on the ballot 7 times, a TV ad is not going to get somebody who is not planning to vote. Only a person can do this. Only a person in a relationship can do this. And that is what we have to do. And while people want to talk to me about message, my message to those people is, let's talk about it as we're knocking some doors, talking to neighbors. You get a walk sheet, I'll talk message with you all you want. But we are leaving people behind. One of the biggest things that shows this more than anything else is Trump's effort to try to mess around with the census and put a question on there about citizenship. He doesn't want to count people who he, in his opinion, don't count anyway. Are we going to sit by and deal with this? This is a labor-intensive thing. And I wish for 5 seconds that the people who think about technology and marketing and all that stuff in politics would give 5 seconds to figure out, how can we extend the relationship, the community, to the people who are simply outside of our orbit right now. That's an intellectual exercise that needs doing. How do we reach more people? How do we engage more people? How do we put technology in service of the relationship? That is what we have to do right now. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I don't have anything better to do than that. And that's what I want to invite you to do. So with that, on behalf of our chair, Tom Perez, who I'm very happy to be working with, I thank you for inviting me here. And if you guys want to talk a little bit, I'm happy to do it.
Congressman Ellison, takes a sip of much-deserved coffee.
All right.
I have 3 questions to start us off, quick ones, and
Good.
we're going to open it up to the audience. So, my 3 questions, it seems like I'll do it one at a time. You want to bring people together in the party. And here are 3 apparent divides that we're going to need to bridge, or say aren't really divides. So I'm going to just walk through these 3 divides, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. So the first divide is the 2016 divide. Lots of interprimary relationships, lots of interprimary friendships. Even though it was back in 2015, 2016, 2 years later, there's still Bernie Hillary things flaring up. Some say it's good because it helps the Dems work out what they believe. Some say it's scary because it risks winning the next election. How do we bridge the 2016 divide?
Great. You want to do all three of them?
Yeah, let's do. Second one is the racial justice and economic justice apparent divide, where some people say, you know, if you're talking about Medicare for all or worrying about Dems losing blue-collar white Americans, you're abandoning and ignoring core Democratic constituencies and issues. But you're a vocal fighter for racial and economic justice. How do you see the two causes fitting together?
I do.
That's the second one. Third one, possibly the hardest, is you're a Catholic who converted to Islam. You're an African American who endorsed a Jewish Brooklynite for president. I'm the son of a Jew and a son of a Catholic myself, so I'm interested in your thoughts on these cultural and religious divides in America and how you've been able to navigate and reach across our nation's religious and cultural differences. So 2016, economic and racial justice, and just general cultural divides.
Got it.
How do we
Thanks.
bridge them?
Well, yeah. So before I go any further, my brother, Tony Ellison, he's a lawyer in town. He's here, and I love that guy. He's right there. Here you go. Hey, Tony, put your hand up, man. Yeah. Yeah, Tony and I were hanging out when my son was running for city council in Minneapolis, and Tony was out there in the streets of Minneapolis knocking them doors in the cold. So there you go. Tony's a pretty good canvasser. Pretty good lawyer, too, if you need one. You can dial him in at 952. Yeah. So the Bernie-Hillary divide. It's there, no question about it, but don't sweat it. Because when you talk about Democrats, they tend to be a tribe that is into their well-formed opinion, and they're going to express it no matter what. It doesn't mean that they're not going to work. So I wouldn't work it out. I wouldn't worry about it too bad. So like I was a Bernie person in the primary. The mayor was the Hillary person. She's still my best bud, and we're good, right? So it's fine. I'll give Hillary a lot of credit. When Bernie was talking about these issues of how our economy has slid dramatically against working people, she didn't just brush him off. She worked with him on the debt-free college thing. She didn't agree that we should have free college, but she and Bernie came up with a compromise position. When it came to the platform drafting committee, she got three, he got three, and we put together a platform drafting committee. When it came to the issue of the Unity Commission, and we're in the middle of that right now, she got three, he got three, and we're now working it out to make sure that we eliminate as much as possible the whole superdelegate thing. Maybe somebody wants to know where we're at on that. And so that's working. It's working. I would say that the divides between Hillary and Bernie are far deeper than Hillary and Bernie. And if we think that this is about two personalities, we're making a big mistake. What it's really about is what do you diagnose the problem of our society to be? And my diagnosis is income inequality, dramatic income inequality is ruining our American democracy. It's literally converting us into a plutocracy and a sham of a democracy, and I think that's the biggest problem. I think Hillary saw it as our big problem is that, we just got to get Dems winning elections, and, we just, I don't know. I think that she came to the conclusion that you just got to you've got to accommodate some of the biggest players in our economy who literally have hurt people, but they're too strong to do anything about them, so you just got to figure out a way to live with them. That's my honest assessment of where she's at. I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. I'm just being honest about, because that's how I see it. So the question is, if you're a Democrat and you say, look, Goldman Sachs is reality. You can't do nothing to them. You just got to learn how to live with them. I'm not trying to put them out of business, but I am trying to make them do what they're supposed to do, which is to connect investors with businesses. They don't supposed to be running the government. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. If they commit fraud, they should go to jail. And my problem is that, the financialization of the economy is taking up too much of our GDP, and as a result, they have outsized power, and as a result, it's hurting fairness in our economy. So I think the divide is deeper than we want to give it credit for. It's a lot easier to just slap labels on it. We do need to discuss this divide. Do we need an incremental change or do we need some dramatic change? I'm telling you, the way this economy is being driven and the way this society is being driven is we could end up in a revolution because too many people just don't have any stake in the whole system. Now, I'm not predicting revolution, folks. I'm simply saying that you look at societies over the course of time where massive numbers of people were just excluded, and it leads to instability. Okay, racial versus economic. You know, the lady who I told you the story about the double mask, she black. You understand what I'm trying to say? I have found that if you have a grassroots engagement strategy where you go on every zip code counts, every block counts, and you are putting resources into every state party, you have a grassroots orientation from the DNC. That goes for rural Eastern Ohio, and that goes for urban Detroit. That goes for East LA. You follow what I'm saying? We don't have to pick who we're fighting for, except we have to fight for the people. We the people. That's who we need to fight for. There is no, in fact, the choice doesn't have to be made. Now, if we're close to people and we're talking about what people need, we solve a lot of these problems. Now, look, America, despite all this, is still a country that started as a slaveholding society and started as a society where there was massive displacement of indigenous people off of their land. And that land was given to whites who never even dreamed of being able to own anything. In fact, the white person who got a plot of land in Alabama in let's move up a little bit. Let's move up to Andrew Jackson. In 1820s, 30s, the white person who got a plot of land in 1830s, his forefathers could never dream of owning anything. They were serfs in England a generation before. So now you're giving them land and you're loaning them money to buy black people and cottonseed. Man, every man a king now. You do that for 14 generations and you got a pretty deeply ingrained attitudes about race. Who deserves, who doesn't deserve. These guns, man, this conversation is animated by identity and people feeling that they're losing something. Not everybody, but much of it. The racial divide, we have got it, but I say those things, but on the other side, it's clear to me racism has got to be enforced or it tends to wither. You've got to enforce racism. If you don't, why do you think we had anti-miscegenation laws? This is a law school, right? Has anybody ever thought about writing about anti-miscegenation laws and why they existed? You can't operate a slave society in black servitude if blackness is a transient idea and you can't keep. One of the reasons that they passed black servitude, lifetime black servitude, is because there was too much black-white coalitioning against the plantation owner. And there were some clear cases of it. So they had to say, it's illegal for you to marry this person. So they had to do that. And so people think Trump is just some Bush League racist. No, he isn't. This may be the most important thing I say to you today, in my opinion. Trump is very skillfully reinforcing racism. That's what he's doing. He's trying to get the blacks and whites to suspect the Hispanics. They're taking your jobs. He goes to a police department in Suffolk, New York, and tells them, don't worry about putting your hand on the top of the heads of the people you're arresting. Let them bash their head. The police chiefs are like, man, you can't endorse police brutality. They're like, yes, I can, and I just did. He's enforcing racism. When Sessions, who's Trump, says we're going to redo the war on drugs and give people maximum penalties for drug sentencing, he's enforcing racial hierarchy. When he says, oh, DACA, he's signaling to a certain group of people, I'm for you, not them. You got to understand, our biggest weapon against that is solidarity. But it's hard to have solidarity if the person who's historically been excluded isn't getting some sort of appreciation from the people who have historically been on the plus side of the racial divide. It's very important for white people to talk about Black Lives Matter. When we hear it, it makes us feel like you might just get it. It's very important for people who are Christian and Jewish and Hindu to say that Islamophobia is unacceptable. When this guy, Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL, said, if they have a Muslim registry, I am going to take my Jewish self and register as a Muslim, that was an important thing for him to do, because it's like, we're not going to let you divide us that way. We've seen this movie before. It didn't end well. You know? And we need to be as self-consciously engaging in solidarity as he is self-consciously engaging in division. Now, I think I kind of touched on some of those other divides. The thing is, it's actually it makes life interesting that people are different races, religions, and come from different backgrounds. It's nothing to be worried about. We need to understand, though, that from a Trump standpoint, he could pick out any difference and divide us with it and then distract us. He goes to the young people, your age, and says, oh, the old people are taking all the money. You're not going to have any Social Security. Who's heard something like that? He's trying to turn you against grandma. That's what they're doing. Look, Social Security is solid if we do nothing until about 2037. If we do a few tweaks, it's no problem. He has people who want him to get their hands on their money. So that's why I want to privatize it. Same thing with the schools. They try to wreck the school so they can argue for all this choice, which really means privatization. That's what's going on. And so I hope I did some justice to the questions you asked. Ma'am?
Hi, my name's Ivy. Thank you so much for coming here today. I'm a research assistant at the law school, and Harvard graduate students across the 13 schools have been organizing to form a graduate student union for the past 6 years. And I just wanted to let people know that the election is on April 18th and 19th, and BSA's research assistants and teaching assistants are eligible. And I wanted to ask you today if you would be willing to endorse our campaign to unionize efforts.
I hereby endorse. But look, I definitely want you to feel special, but I also endorse the grad students at Yale and Columbia and University of Minnesota, so I'm into it. So you guys are awesome right there. Yeah, let's keep going. Yes, sir, in the middle.
Well, Elizabeth Warren may cultivate an image of being the inside-outsider, but she never danced across the Israel lobby. The UN Secretary General this weekend called for a full impartial investigation of the killings and woundings, 15 people, Palestinian protesters killed, over 1,000 wounded as well. And the United States in the Security Council vetoed a Kuwaiti-introduced resolution to do exactly that. So what I'm wondering is which party stands up for Palestinian rights and an end to the blockade of Gaza and an end to the occupation of the West Bank? But it's certainly not Elizabeth Warren's party.
Let me tell you, obviously, you know when you're asking the question, you're asking among one of the toughest questions anybody can ask anywhere in a public square. You know that, right?
Right.
And so, I'm not going to run from your question. I'm going to answer the question. At this point, neither party has addressed the entire issue of what I'll call Middle East peace in an adequate way. Democrats have tried a lot more, but we still haven't made the progress. We haven't made much progress at all. I went to Gaza 3 times since 2009. I have physically had myself in the place and walked the streets there, and I can tell you that I've been in many war zones. I've been in a lot of war zones. I've been to Iraq, I've been in Latin America where there's wars that just got through, and I'm telling you, I've never seen anywhere as messed up as Gaza. You leave Israel through the Eretz crossing, and you walk into another century. They got horse-drawn carriages there because there's not enough oil. A lot of the buildings that were bombed, you think, oh, wait, did that get bombed in the recent bombing? No, that was 4 wars ago that got bombed. By the way, one time I was in Gaza, and just about all the food that is sold there comes through the tunnels. It's doesn't get through the regular channels. And so I had a bunch of shekels and I was leaving town the next day. So I wanted to buy something, and somebody said, "Why don't you buy that box of candy bars and give them to those kids, because those kids have no hope of ever getting anything like that, given the political situation." I did that, and the thing that shocked me is that we ran out of chocolate bars in no time, and there was a swarm of kids. 54% of the people who live in Gaza are under 18 years old. So when people say, oh, they elected Hamas, they didn't. Most people there, they're kids. They're kids. Look, I agree there needs to be an investigation. I think Israel is a strong enough society to investigate itself. I think people who say an investigation is somehow anti-Israel are wrong. That implies that Israel doesn't have the wherewithal to look at its own behavior, and it should. I've been to the region many times, double digits. It's not the oldest conflict in the world. The conflict in Ireland went on longer. The conflict in South Africa went on longer. This is a conflict that can be fixed. But the political dynamic today is that if you say I'm all about Israel and all I care about is Israel, there's money, there's votes, there's supporters. If you say all I care about is Palestine, there's still money, votes, and supporters, but they're in much smaller numbers. The territory where you're going to get your butt racked, beat up on the most, is being in the middle, trying to say what we need is a peaceful resolution to this conflict. And even that is tougher than it used to be. Why? Because you could say at one time, I believe in a two-state solution. But now, people on the right and on the other end of the political spectrum have lost any confidence in that, and they say we need one state. I'm talking about on the right, they got their version of one state. On the left, they got their version of one state. The truth is that those, I think the best thing for us to do is be much more aggressive and argue to the American people that it is in our national interest to have a resolution to that conflict based on justice and accountability. And that's what I got for you today. Yeah.
Congressman, thank you for being here. I wanted to follow up on the third divide that was mentioned before, where sometimes there are divides within the Democratic Party along ethnic or racial
Yeah,
or
no
religious
question.
lines. Recently, there's been a spate of anti-Semitism on the left in the United States and globally, especially when we look at Great Britain. And I want to follow up on comments that came to light with Farrakhan in the past few weeks. They were transphobic, homophobic, and they were anti-Semitic. And a lot of people on the left, a lot of Jewish folks on the left, including myself, have been dismayed that there are prominent organizers who have been very reticent to fully condemn those remarks and to disassociate themselves from people like Farrakhan. And I'm wondering what you have to say about that, and what we can do to make sure that we continue to eradicate all forms of racism, including anti-Semitism.
Let me say this. I have said so many times I can't begin to even count that I absolutely condemn anti-Semitism from whatever source, including Farrakhan. Let me say this. According to a report that the ADL recently did, anti-Jewish hate crimes have spiked in this country. It's not black people doing it, okay? In Charlottesville last year, they were marching through town yelling, "Jews will not replace us." Wasn't no black people in that crowd. I gotta just say this to you. Any form of bigotry at all, including anti-Semitism, is completely unacceptable and beyond the pale. But let's keep in mind what is going to kill somebody. Like what happened to Heather Heyer, like the threats to synagogues. Look, I got to be honest with you and tell you, this thing about Farrakhan being absolutely radioactive and then trying to connect anyone possible to him and then make them radioactive is, look, Farrakhan's organization is tiny. They don't have any influence. Nobody listens to them. They don't have any answers for anyone. Nobody's paying any attention to them. I'm telling you, they're not. I mean, give me credit for leading my life. Farrakhan is irrelevant to any politics. Nobody cares. Is he working on health care? Is he working on anything? Is anyone thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to be an anti-Semite like him? No one is saying that. What I'm telling you is the only way Farrakhan gets in the news is if somebody tries to say, oh, this black person whose whole life is dedicated to human rights met him or saw him or was in a room with him. It's a smear, man. I'm sorry, it is a smear. And I gotta tell you, it is frustrating to be pulled out and it's like it's your daily moment to denounce anti-Semitism. We denounce it. We absolutely denounce it. We think it is reprehensible, murderous, and genocidal. And it offends me that anyone would insist that I do it one more time. Read anything I've ever said, or Maxine Waters has said, or anyone. Let me tell you, here's the truth of the matter, if we're interested in that. Farrakhan is known best for things like the Million Man March and fiery rhetoric condemning American racism. He's also known very well for his anti-Semitic scapegoating of the Jewish community. Because you're talking about people who spent 250 years in slavery, another 100 years in Jim Crow government-sponsored segregation, and has only been around 60 years since anything else has been going on, and we still have disparities in every aspect of American life, the black community is susceptible to a person who's going to stand up and say what's happening to us is wrong. What I say to you is, just because the mainstream doesn't like Farrakhan doesn't make Farrakhan some great friend of the black community. That's what I say. I say that he's all about the fundraising. He's talking about spaceships. I thought he's mostly into Scientology nowadays. And he doesn't have any clock. And yet, the Black Caucus in particular has been targeted with this smear. The Black Caucus has fought for justice more than any other caucus in the United States Congress, period. And that's who is being questioned about whether we really stand against hatred. It's offensive. And I'm not saying you're offending me. I'm saying I want you to think about this a little differently. Because the real threats to the Jewish community, which are real and legitimate and are a threat and all of us have to stand against it, they're not coming from the left. They're just not. You know, I'm not speaking for the whole left. I'm talking about this recent spate of stories about Farrakhan, right? Now, there might be some people on the left who are anti-Semitic, no doubt about it. There's people on the left who are racist, homophobic, sexist. Like we've seen these people on the left who are great champions of the left who actually are caught up in the Me Too movement. So I'm not trying to say the left is some sort of a pure group, but what I am saying is let's keep some perspective on this, right? So thank you for raising the point, but I think that if you think about Charlottesville and you think about the dramatic statistical escalation, then we will think about how to preserve, and if we're worried about preservation of life and who's really a threat, I think we might look at this issue differently. Thank you. Anybody?
As our final question of the day, because they're going to kick us out of the room for a tax class.
All right, fun times.
You were a law student.
I was.
And the biggest risk for law students is being risk averse. But you haven't been risk averse in your life. You've been courageous. Do you have any advice for the law students in the audience today about how to live a life of courage and justice?
Remind yourself on a regular basis through the people you talk to, the books you read, the volunteering you do, the work you do, that the best things about this country are not consumption. The best thing is that America at its best is about liberty and justice for all, and lawyers are in a unique position to make that true. And you should never relent on that. You should take the tremendous opportunity you have to make this country as democratic, fair, and equal as you can, And the way you do it is that you continually engage your value system in material, pragmatic ways. If you want to go work on Wall Street, what are you doing on green energy? What are you doing for socially conscious investing? If you want to go do something in tax, are you going to make sure that the American public gets the money it needs to run the government? No matter what field of endeavor you're in, there is a justice angle to it. Never forget it, and come to lectures like this.
That's it.